What's up, everybody? Today I want to do a video about Kanye. Oh, Kanye West. Um, we could definitely mine some great content out of the at times insufferable, at times um, genius Kanye West, and that's sort of the theme of today's video, which I'm going to be talking about is the Kanye West documentary Jeen Yus, that is spelled out phonetically, Jeen Yus, which premiered on Netflix a couple days ago. And basically, this is going to have it's just going to basically kind of break down my thoughts on the documentary. And yeah, I just thought this would be a nice little video to sort of like break up the content, the different types of content. Um, there's some housekeeping stuff like, I'm fixing up the background, and I am looking to bring back my podcast, but in video form. So that will hopefully be happening soon, or sooner rather than later. But yeah, let's just get into it. So the documentary follows a young Kanye West trying to break through in the industry. And that's actually, it is actually very exciting. Um, what, what's kind of interesting to me is that the director at the time took a chance because there was no real way of knowing if Kanye was for sure going to break through. And so he kind of like basically, you know, gives up everything else in his life to follow Kanye around and the story of what's happening to Kanye, which now in hindsight is sort of monumental because we see the foundation for what became of Kanye West's career. And that's really what's really special about this documentary. It's only the first part has been released, but it's very interesting. It's a very interesting insight into the creative process of Kanye West, what he was like as an up and comer, and it sort of kind of shows how he sort of changed the musical landscape of hip hop. And hip hop really has never really been the same since Kanye West really became a phenomenon and sort of was catapulted into the mainstream. Him signing to The Rock, and what's really interesting. I mean, there's so many interesting elements about this documentary. First and foremost, it's what really fascinated me was sort of Kanye's Christianity, because as Kanye has gotten older, he sort of kind of embraced his Christianity in a way that's been kind of jarring, I think, for a lot of people, especially with the with the MAGA thing. But then you think back to like Trump had a huge evangelical, uh, you know, I wouldn't say base, but he had huge evangelical support, and these things seem contradictory, but in a way they are not. And I'm not saying for one, I grew up Christian. I am pretty much not a religious person anymore, but I do think that Kanye as a Christian rapper, or within a Christian, Kanye definitely needs to be thought of in a Christian context. And that is sort of one of the most important takeaways that I got out of this documentary. The other is that, so the person doing the documentary was a part of basically documenting Chicago's rising hip hop scene. There are a lot of parallels to Chicago in Toronto that I see sometimes, and this in particular I kind of found was a justified parallel, in which there is a huge metropolitan area that just, for whatever reason, didn't have a record label, so they often got overlooked, even though that there was a plethora of talent in the city. And this was very true of Chicago at the time. And then, because at the time, the only really sort of mainstream rapper, which is mentioned in the documentary, is Common Sense. And Common only had gone gold at the time, and he was sort of the kind of quintessential backpack rapper. and there were no like platinum selling rappers out of Chicago, which was really interesting. I think maybe the Brat. I think she's in the documentary. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. And if that's a mistake, I guess I'll edit that out. But anyways, the guy behind the camera, Cootie, he is documenting Kanye West, who is the subject of this documentary. And so at the time he's doing this documentary and he doesn't quite know what it's going to be. He just kind of has a sense that Kanye is going to be an important figure somehow to Chicago and the Chicago rap scene. But I don't even think he could have foresaw how big Kanye actually was going to be. I mean, very few artists really become part of the pantheon of hip hop canon. And it's very interesting seeing Kanye as a young man, as a young producer who's producing for other people. And, Kanye at the time was already kind of working with big names, like working with people like Scarface. He produced Guess Who's Back and some other hits, but Kanye was mainly a producer. Kanye was trying to get signed, but, no one really took Kanye West seriously as a rapper, and that's really what he wanted to do. He really wanted to be a rapper and pursue his dreams. And I mean, there's so many interesting moments in this doc where, I mean, first off, we kind of see Kanye's attitude early on, and this is something that's important to note because a lot of us now have sort of gotten used to Kanye's like social media rants and sort of see that he's gone a little, for lack of better words, he's gone a little crazy over the years, right? So, that may be a problematic term or whatever, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say that's what it is. I think Kanye is like crazy. There are too many problems with the word crazy, but Kanye has definitely been a problematic figure. But one of the things that this documentary does well is paint Kanye in a sympathetic light. And again, I go back to the theme of Christianity within his music. And this was something that, right out of the gates, Kanye came out as sort of a Christian rapper. Like Jesus Walks was pretty much like, if it wasn't his first single, it was one of his first singles. The way I kind of see it is like DMX was kind of like the dark side, or like sort of like the internal, not even suffering, but it's sort of like internalized spirituality, where Kanye was very much like the extrovert and like the hope of faith in a way. And so his album sort of reflects that. And I was actually listening to it this morning. I didn't know I was going to make this video. I had an idea that I was going to make this video, but listening to the College Dropout, in a way, like I almost, maybe bar Workout Plan, I would say there are pretty much no bad songs on the College Dropout. There's so many singles on the College Dropout because of how dope it was. And so I'm sort of, going all over the place, but in the documentary, the documentary chronicles Kanye's relationships with different artists, everybody from Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Dame Dash, Jay-Z to an extent. I mean, Jay-Z is sort of a peripheral figure, as Kanye was not big enough at the time to really, really take meetings with Jay-Z. And like, Kanye is at that moment, at least in part one, he's really trying to make himself known. He's a go-getter, and that is one thing that is true of Kanye. And he's talking about like wanting to sell beats to DMX, but also wanting to keep beats from himself, and talking about again his creative process. And there's a scene where he's being interviewed by a reporter from Rolling Stone, and there's like this really quirky scene where he just like wants to throw in the word fruition for whatever reason. And it's like this really like eccentric thing, like, oh, it's like his word of the day, and he just wanted to throw that into the interview. And again, like Kanye comes off as sympathetic, and this is one of the best things about the documentary, is that because for a long time, Kanye hasn't been sympathetic. Obviously with the sort of in present day, all the things going on with his divorce with Kim Kardashian, Kanye is really looking like the bad guy. And this documentary is kind of posing him in a positive light. Now, the thing is, I would be kind of careful with this because we don't want hagiography. We don't want to paint Kanye as completely altruistic when we definitely know that Kanye is somebody who definitely has faults. The best part is where Kanye's mother, Donda, is telling Kanye to essentially be humble or to ground himself. And this is really important. It is probably the most pivotal part of part one. And really, I wouldn't want to do this video without talking about this particular scene where Donda explains to Kanye that, to a giant, to everyone is a giant. But when a giant looks in the mirror, they don't see anything. And this is a metaphor for, you can be grandiose to everybody else, everyone around you, and you should be because, you are a superstar, as, Donda likes to say to Kanye, and kind of instills in him confidence. And this is really important, especially for his, self-esteem building. And he definitely, at times, needs to have his self-esteem reassured in going against the grain in the industry. But she cautions him with this metaphor to, keep himself grounded in some way. And this really is kind of the tragedy of the loss of Kanye's mother. Because we see now, we always had an estimation of what Kanye's relationship with his mother meant, and he definitely references her in early interviews and stuff like that, and he mentions that, she was an English teacher. Kanye definitely has a way with words, right? I think Kanye as a rapper really was underestimated, and that is an important thing to note. Kanye, for example, has a scene where he's trading bars with Mos Def, and the song ends up on the College Dropout. It's called Two Words, and I'm trading verses, and Mos Def has a great verse, and then Kanye has also a phenomenal verse. So if Kanye can hold his own with Mos Def and Talib Kweli, that definitely does say something. And this really kind of goes back to this whole meme that Kanye himself started, is I miss the old Kanye. And really, I do miss the old Kanye. Yeah, so to wrap it up, overall, I would say please do watch the documentary. It is definitely an interesting insight. It's definitely a fascinating documentary into the insight of a very outlandish, creative individual that we've all sort of come to know within pop culture. A music icon sort of indefinitely. And like I said, Kanye has been for at least the last little while kind of an unsympathetic character. And so it's nice to sort of like Kanye again, at least as somebody who, has been a fan for his music and realized how monumental him sort of breaking into the industry was and how he sort of broke the mold. And so, again, I really don't think that part can be understated, but it will be interesting to see how Kanye navigates fame throughout the film. And something I didn't mention earlier is I'd like to kind of talk about the documentarian himself, who kind of inserts himself in the documentary, even though he's behind the camera with his narration, because he talks about having to give up or drop all the other stuff that he was working on to kind of follow Kanye West around, because he knew that something special was going to happen. He just knew there was something special about Kanye. And that's really interesting, and that's a really insightful moment, is that I guess you can, certain people you feel an energy around, and I guess Kanye had that. He had the charisma to be a successful music star, a star in the music industry. So, again, I would highly recommend this documentary. In fact, part one is so good that we haven't even gotten into the car accident yet. And, I've already made this video, which is, however long it is, and, talking about the documentary, dissecting it, and I still feel like I haven't said everything I wanted to say about it. But, Kanye West is definitely a great subject for a documentary, so I would highly recommend watching it if you're into music, if you're remotely interested in Kanye West at all, or if you're just a hip hop fan in general, because it definitely talks about, like the Rockefeller split and, Dame Dash and Jay-Z. And these were like historic moments. And like I said, Kanye is a historic figure in the music industry. So, stay tuned. I will probably do a follow up video for parts 2 and 3. We will see how it goes. At least I will give my overall kind of breakdown or analysis at the end. And I'm excited to see where it goes and how it all ties together.